I mean, there's some give and take, and there's some internal incentives probably pushing a lot of that. So you're right.
Well, no, and you know what? I think we're already deep into this. We're already deep into the episode as it is. Something you buy and sell like a commodity, and you just work your way up. Just the market and life has become very different in the United States. What do you think?
Night and day difference. Night and day difference. And I mean, I know people or friends or partners, connections, whatever the case may be, that are actually saving their 20% and buying like rental properties
Hmm.
and living in one of them, right? So like a
Right.
fourplex or something, like that's a huge new thing, right? And then you don't have any overhead, right? And you have that freedom to live, in a more wealthy environment versus like just paycheck to paycheck, which is, I'm sure there's still, I would love to see the numbers. I mean, after this, I'm going to have to Google it because I bet you it's
Right.
still super high on, what families live paycheck to paycheck versus what, I would call wealthy, that are comfortable, that can go out to eat. And when they pay the tab, they're not looking at their phone to see what's left in the bank and concerned about gas or whatever the case may be, right? I
No,
don't know what that percentage is.
I think it's really high all across the country, and I think also even though inflation hasn't completely abated, prices are still very high. Now, I live in let's say a slightly more expensive area of the country, but again, incomes are also a lot higher over here in the Permian Basin. So
Right.
there's still that trade off. But I think that here also they are building a lot of housing stock and rental apartment buildings, but home ownership is also very huge, and it's really big in the
Right.
Permian because our industry understands that unless you can attract and retain good workers and their families, it's going to be a really hard time keeping this industry afloat if you can't get the people and their families to come.
Right. Exactly. I mean, and I want to say Keith Stetler, my buddy's the one that said this, but he had last time he checked, it is the highest paying like state and basin and anything in like the world. Like
Yes.
Permian Basin is like if you whatever your education, whatever your drive is, if you want to go make the most bang for your buck, Permian, just drive down there, get yourself an apartment, and make it happen. I mean, it's a factual statement, right? There's jobs for days, and they're continually growing, which is amazing. I mean, it's good for them, right? They can always have that like badge of honor, every year, like, oh, guess what? We did it again, right? And I mean, a lot of it is their internal economy, right? It's your location. Like I said, they pay higher. So, and in turn, everything can be higher,
Right.
right?
Right. No, no, you're absolutely right. And Keith Stetler, no, you're right. Actually, no, he's one of my favorite people too. Lives here in the Permian in Odessa, and he's a tremendous community, tremendous, both in the industry and in the community.
He's killing it. We got to give him a shout out. Did you see he got like a second check for the for the
Oh,
tires? Did you see that? I apologize for whoever's watching this. I don't remember exactly who the checks came from. I remember reading it though and liking it. And I know he keeps getting like $1,500 because, and I mean, I guess I was unaware, but these community cleanups that they're doing in the Permian, I absolutely love the concept. I know, oh man, Keith Vulnerable out of Colorado does it for Rocky Mountain Pipeliners Association, and they do the
nice.
same thing. But I didn't know, or I guess I didn't think about the tires and the disposal costs and these various things. Like nobody probably did, right? You just assume here's a trash bag, pick stuff up, call it a day. There's a little more logistics that are involved, So I mean, and I'm glad he's like showing visibility of that, and not just saying, "Hey, we cleaned up." Like, hey, there's like there's a lot to just we're not just meeting 5 minutes after work and doing this. There's some planning involved, right?
Oh, absolutely. No. And I think that, again, that also is a testament not only to Keith and his leadership locally, but also to the other individuals and the businesses that are here because they care enough that they see the rallying cry. And I'm sure everyone was like, thank God, because I wanted to do something like that. And at least you started it, right? Because you can see by how many people continue to participate and how much contribution there is that there is a real need and there is a lot of pride. So no, fantastic and really great on Keith because he's just knocking it out of the park. And the best
He
part
is.
about it is it's making everything kind of grow because we have something happening here in Midland as well. And when people take pride of place, especially because we live in the middle of nowhere, like it takes a good few hours to get here. And
Right.
the people who are here, they want to be here because you're really not on your way to anywhere else. I mean, you're
Right.
really not from here. So I find that when you have people who really have pride of place, I mean, it's everything because we all live here.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you a question. How long have you been involved in oil and gas? Like that's a question I've had for a while. How long have you been involved? Because you
So I always love
said
this one,
that.
right? I love this one. So, I mean, I was born and raised in oil and gas, right? So, and I mean, the amazing answer to this, and here's kind of like my direct, like, if I'm at a restaurant, if I'm having an adult beverage, whatever the case may be, I'm fourth generation, right? And I'm the only one in that generational scale that didn't go roughneck. I did for a short little bit of time, but that was their career. I mean, most of my uncles, my dad, he's county commissioner in Arbor County and owns the Waterwell Company now. But prior to that, he drilled for 38 years for all the major names. His father did so on and so forth. My uncles still do that. My uncle Leon Midkiff is drilling for, I want to say, precision drilling right now out in the Powder River Basin. And then I think my uncle Frank is offshore. So I was born and raised in it. I mean, so people that are listening, so Jamie Primo love this one because we have a buddy, Bill Sowers. He's junior to me. He's getting old. He's in his 60s, right? And when I was a little kid, I was sitting in a red Halliburton LTD. So any old timers know it was kind of like their sales car, right? And it was a blizzard outside, right? And Bill Sowers Sr. and my dad were up front and I was in the back. And they pulled up to a bar because back then that's kind of thing, right? And they sat me in there for like 4 hours, brought me out a sandwich, some Pepsi, blah, blah, blah. And then when the bar closed, Bill Sowers Sr. went to the rig hands' houses and dragged them out and made sure they were going to location. You can't do that now. I mean, it's a funny story for history, but I mean, yeah. So that's, I've seen quite a bit.
Wow. I mean, you almost sent me back to like Paul Revere days, right?
Right.
Right. Like that's really where it comes from.
Yeah.
No, that's intense. That's really intense. And like you say, to be surrounded by it because your whole family was involved, it made sense that you would participate in some way or another. How hard was it as a roughneck that your career was abruptly cut short? What was up with that?
So I did it for a summer. So when I graduated, I did it for a summer for my dad, and it was 10 times harder because it was my father, right? So I didn't get to like stand around and twiddle my thumbs. Like he would throw wrenches into the grass and make me go get it. Like there was no like lack of like, here's a paintbrush, here's this. Like it was never ending, right? And I mean, he taught me a lot of stuff, and I hate to admit it, he taught me how to like count pipe, tally book style. I mean, they have the machines now. I don't think any driller even knows how to now, but I don't remember how now. But I used to. It was pretty cool, right? Because I could like rub that in people's faces for lack of a better term. But I couldn't do it now.
Oh my goodness. No, that is, okay, you didn't want to date yourself, but there you go. No, that's huge. But so in your transition over the years that you've been in this industry, who are some of the more important people that you've met and that formed your perception of your career and moved your career along? Who were some of the most important people you met?
Oh, man. I would say when I started my actual career with, a corporate oil and gas company, they're the umbrella, I claimed it. It wasn't a mom and pop shop. I had a gentleman by the name of Floyd Bisbee, and I worked very hard for this man. I started at the bottom. So we're talking like washing parts, worked my way up, and he was very insightful. He made a comment years ago, and it stuck with me. And I always want to reword it, but I think saying it directly how he said it gives you value, but then you got to see on the back end what he meant by it, right? So I was painting, and I think we'd been working like 190 hours for 2 weeks. It was insane, right? And I needed some help. No, like half the guys called in sick because they wanted a day off, kind of thing. So it was just pure chaos. I asked him if he could help paint like a piece of equipment. And he said, if I have to get out of this chair, you're fired. Right. And I know, taking a step back, right? But then, he circled back and he explained it, right? He wanted me to sit on it. He's like, you know why I did that? He's like, because I need you guys to understand. And he was actually molding me to become higher in the company, that if you can't leave on vacation and everything falls apart, you don't have the right people doing the job. He was teaching me stuff, right? And that's a very valid thing. I think a lot of people, here's a better way to put it. So a lot of people that start a company, they'll be on LinkedIn, social media. Oh yeah, I'm with the guys. I'm on the ground. I'll never make them do anything I wouldn't do, kind of thing, right? And that's a huge thing. But I think people also got to understand that there's got to be a hierarchy. There's got to be separation. They can't just there's a reason they hired you, right? And I think people get away from that. I think the largest companies that continually grow at a fast pace have a huge understanding of hiring the right people, making sure the right people are in the right position, moving those people around, making sure that stuff is attended to. Because, yeah, it's great you're out there getting your hands dirty, but what's not getting done? Do you have a bookkeeper? Do you do that? Are your paychecks late because you work 24 hours and you don't have service now? Like, what does that look like, right? I mean, there's a lot of variables, and I think there's no visual or verbal, like, information given to people that start doing this, right? I think a lot of people, they learn that late, and it causes them more work. It would have been a lot less work if they'd had an understanding of, why things are run the way they are and why companies are effective. But at the same point, I hate to admit it, there's some companies that probably just don't run like that, and maybe they won't. There's a lot of variables, right? So I guess that's not just one guaranteed model, maybe.
Well, but you know what? But I like the way you set that up, because it's investment in the people. So we bring someone in, we hired you because you have an aptitude, you have whatever the case is that we brought you in the door. And we're going to put you in that role. If you are not a really great fit for that role, well, but then, like you said, the company is going to sit back and say, well, we brought him on board for a reason.
Right. There was value.
The reason we brought him on board. Right. There's value. And it's not his fault, because
right.
he was just right. We said yes. And he's just the guy he is. So it's incumbent upon us to see, how do we best utilize the value that this man is naturally bringing, or this person just naturally brings. And right. I think that is incredibly antithetical to the way a lot of mid and smaller sized service companies operate, which is, what, you're no good, you're out the door. And
right.
They keep rotating through people. And unfortunately, that doesn't do their business any good, because
right.
they've also lost a lot of institutional knowledge, right? Maybe you've had someone there who was there 6 years. He does something, they let him go. But everyone
right.
else you have has only been there for 3 years. Who knows the
right.
secrets, right? So I think that organizations that take the time to really value and mine, for lack of a better term, like the personnel they bring in, they're the ones that get ahead over the companies that have high turnover. This is what
right.
I see.
Oh, for sure. You nailed it. I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself, And like I said, I mean, I hate to ever say that one model fits all, because there's so many, and I've seen very successful people, and I'm blown away on how they run their company, right? it's I'm sure I'm not the only one, I'm like, that works, but I mean, to each their own, right? To each their own.
Right. Well, it's funny, because in the scope of human endeavor, everything is just what you want to make it be. Whether you want to have high principles and high standards and you run it that way, that's the kind of shop you're going to have. If it's seat of your pants, talking out of both sides of your mouth, well, then that's the way your operation is going to be. But then don't be surprised when all your people start acting that way.
Right, exactly. I mean, you created the culture, right? And it's gonna slowly flood itself out, And I mean, one thing I love about the oil and gas industry, and I'm trying to change even how I vocalize it, right? So, Christian, what I think, energy, right? Yes. And I've always said, I mean, and Joseph Gauthier, all these guys, Jack Hamlin, they've all said it as well. There's room for all energy, right? There's a place for it, nuclear, solar, whatever the case may be. Wind, I mean, they all have negative and pros and cons. They all have pros and cons, right? But at the end of the day, we're still a huge, industry, very huge industry with a ton of opportunity and a ton of growth, and it's amazing to watch these small companies pop up. It's a ripple effect of buyouts, right? Let's be honest. Mm-hmm. You're going to buy out somebody that built a huge company. They're going to get bored in a month and they're going to do something else. We've seen it over and over, right? Or they're going to get picked up and get paid an immense amount to build that company and sell it. And I mean, I want to say I made some notes and I wish they were in front of me, but they're not right now. Last week, I just seeing in a week buyouts and approvals, like the Exxon, Pioneer, all that stuff. Yeah. There was 7 on my list that happened. Some people didn't even know they were even in transition, because there's so many happening, right? There's so many moves. People are just moving assets, advancing those assets, changing them, and then reselling them. And it's something we're going to see for a long time, because it's just financially beneficial and it looks good on paper. I mean, let's black and white that.
Right. And I think that as more, and of course, as we started a little bit earlier, there's a lot of money here. There's a lot of money to be made here. And so you're going to get all these kinds of entrepreneurs that are going to come in with, a different way, or maybe not a different way, just an also ran. Because like you said, as long as they can stay in the game long enough, one of their options is maybe to get bought out. And
right.
And perhaps that's what they wanted.
Well, honestly, for the first time, I think, so we were talking about, when we backstep, how it used to be, So when I grew up, a great example is True Drilling out of Wyoming. I think they're the oldest drilling company. I shouldn't say that, so don't quote me if I'm wrong. Somebody in the comments when they watch this, but I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure they are. And they built that company and they're never going to sell it. Right? This is our name. This is our drilling company. We want to stay the best. We want to take care of these basins. But now you're seeing companies. I'm not going to say who, but I have tons of like very successful friends that their whole intent is to start this company and in 6 months sell it for this.
Right.
We're not in an era where people are building a company with their last name on it, trying to hand it down to their son. They're trying to sell 5 of them and just hand down the wealthy finances to their son and then not make them work at all, which is too bad my dad wasn't on board with that. I'm sure yours wasn't either, but I mean, it's amazing to see this. Like they're not building companies. Man, this is going to sound negative. They're not building companies. I'm just going to have to spit it out. To like build like something in history. They're building it for financial gain, and that's it.
That's it. Right. It's no. And you hit it right on the head. It's not a company to build and grow. It's an investment vehicle to sell at the moment.
And have somebody else grow it.
Right. And have someone else grow it.
Yeah.
But even in and of itself, that is still a worthy goal. Because
it really is. It really
is.
I agree. I totally agree.
If the company that you start with intent to build, you already know from the giddy up, this thing has to work like a Swiss watch, or no one is going to buy it.
Excuse me. You nailed it, actually. That's a great point. Never thought. It has to be very like shiny.
It has
outside
to
looking in.
But it must be, because the product of the business is not the commodity that they sell. The product of the business is the business itself.
Right.
And much like we have in the financial markets, we have derivatives, right? Well, there's so much money sloshing back and forth. They're like, well, what if I make a bet on that dollar moving back and forth? And now you have an entire derivatives industry. And it's the same thing here. Right. Yes, there are businesses that are, mom and pop. They're grown up. Truckers, they start their own independent operator businesses to make their own and to grow them, leave legacies to their kids. But then there's another, and for lack of a better term, let's use sophistication. Okay, let's use that term.
I like that. That's a positive way to put it. I'll roll with that.
A financial sophistication to kind of kick the game up a level, which is exactly right. Why would I want to slog through a business? Because then in turn, all I've done is bought myself a job. Because if I don't go to work, I don't get paid. So it's much better to build a machine that works without you. And again, I find that a wholly worthwhile goal. Because again, if that business didn't have value in and of itself, well, then you know what happens. Like, it just doesn't get off the ground. It never gets funded. So,
right. I've struggled. So I've been trying to find a better way to answer this question. And I'm going to throw this one at you, right? So just catch it and see what you can do with it. So for the longest time, I've always been a strong believer. And I've told, people that I'm like helping grow underneath me and partners, I hate to say employees, team members, whatever the case may be, like, what is your driver? And automatically 99.9% of anybody's going to tell you, I want a new boat. I want to make more money. I want a new house. Well, no, we know that. We all want that, right? So sorry to burst your bubble. Like, it's not really a driver, So like trying to reword that for people to be like, hey, like here's an actual driver. Do you want to learn how to manage a project of 25 million and this, maybe it's more of a driver. Do you want to write a book and you want that information to get out to these people? Like, those are more drivers. I mean, financial gains always, you can't call it a driver because it's just factual. I mean, we have to make money to survive. It's just what it is, right? So I always like to throw that out. All right, like, take that out. What else is your driver? Do you want to come here and learn what we do and then take that to start your own company? What's driving you to do what you're doing in your career? What's the next step look like, and what's that driver going to look like to help you get there?
No, that's brilliant, because it's the answer to what's the driver, which is very fascinating. And I really appreciate that you brought up the subject, because this is one of my special areas of interest, which is, we, like you said, right? We all want money. We all need to make money. We live in America in 2024. No shocker. We all need to live, pay the bills.
Right.
No shocker. But that, like you said, anyone has that. So it's neither here nor there. The question is, like you say, what is your driver? And I read Dean Graziosi's Millionaire Success Habits, I believe it was.
Okay.
And he mentioned something here which I want to give to you so you can use. So when you ask people what's your driver, and they say money, the secret is you have to ask why 7 times.
Really?
By the time say, well, I want more money. Why? Because I want to be in control. Why? Because I didn't have control as a kid. Why? Because my parents always fought and I always felt alone. And so that's what moves me. Why? Because I never want anyone else to tell me what to do ever again. See, that's your why. That answers all the questions. That answers.
I'm sure glad I brought it up because you seem like the kind of guy that would have an amazing answer to that problem, so to speak. It's not mathematical, but it sure is. It's an equation in a sense.
Well, I've got cases of Stella Artois if you want to come on by, and we'll start plowing through them and we can work through them. Anytime you want, we're here.
I mean, only if you got the fancy glass to go with it. You know
of course. We'd have it no other way.
No other way. I respect that.
And so I think that, and that's fascinating also because, as our buddy Keith has pointed out, right? Like, more people can make more advances in their lives in the Permian Basin and in the oil and gas industry than any other place. But if you don't have a driver as a human being, as a man, as a woman, as a person of worth, all you're really doing is spinning wheels, and you're
exactly
other people's dreams and desires, not your own.
You're just going through the motions, for lack of better terms, and I don't think anybody wants that, but they also have to grow internally to be able to get out of that mindset. Like one foot in front of the other isn't always the answer, Maybe jump over a little bit from time to time, maybe backstep.
Right. No. I mean, and that's what it is, right? It's just any way you need to get around that obstacle. But let me ask you this. Let me ask you the same question. Let me turn it on you. What drives you? What makes you get up every morning and go? What's the big why for you?
I want in 20 years to be remembered and known for a very prominent voice and a happy-go-lucky individual in the oil and gas industry, and somebody that people can come to with question concerns, and I'm sitting in a wealthy spot where I can just help them, just with my free time that I hopefully have at that moment in life. I mean, we will see. 20 years don't take very long, but
no, it doesn't.
That's what I notated when I was trying to figure it out,
Well, let me tell you this then. You're already very, very, very well on your way. So I think the first time that you and I ever spoke on the phone, or I just communicated with you, I said, could you explain to me how you became the most famous and liked person on LinkedIn? Could you explain that to me?
Right.
Everybody seems to love you. But I know why. Because every day you are building that road to the future of constantly giving. I remember very well one post in particular where you had said you sat down with a cohort or a competitor, other may say, and that competitor asked you a couple of questions. And if I remember your post, you basically said, I turned everything over and I showed them all the cards. I said, this is how it goes. This is the answer to your question. And this is how we do it. And if you need any more help, let me know. And I thought that was tremendous.
That's exactly it.
Is that right?
That's exactly it. And I notated because somebody asked me and I was like, everybody's fair share is out there. You just got to go get it. I'm not in competition with, a team member or competitor. Like, I'm more than happy to give them the information. They got to outsell me. And that I'm pretty good, my friend.
I can see that. I got to check my wallet. Okay, no. No. But but I think that's something that I think works for you, and dare I say, it works a little bit for me as well, which is that, of course, we have to operate in a world where there's transactions, there's formalities, there's titles, because if we don't have a system, nothing works, right? So
right.
We have to trust each other that we have the system that we play this game that we're in. But at the same time, I think you and I are also like, yeah, we're going to push past all that.
Right.
It's all there. You can keep it, but we're going to push past that and talk to you. And that works for you.
Right.
You're very genuine. You're very disarming because you're very authentic. And I think that is something that a lot of people struggle, especially when they're coming up in this industry. Because, we're full of a lot of alpha males, right? Or a lot of in this industry. And, sometimes admitting that you're wrong, you're going to get your head stomped like a ripe watermelon. Right?
It's not in our DNA either. I mean, if you just look at it from like a male standpoint, right? It's the classic, the 90s comment of we don't read directions, to build something.
Right.
Yeah.
No, it's true. But
yeah.
But I think that without but without this willingness to learn, no one ever gets anywhere. What would you say to someone who's trying to get into the business today? What would you say? So, they'll pass their physical, they'll pass a drug test, they'll pass their DOT screen, all that kind of stuff. What bits of advice would you give to someone who's just starting out?
Don't be quiet. The days of 1990 putting your head down and just doing your task and going home aren't going to get you anywhere. Ask questions. You know, Here's a great drilling example, right? And this is still tried and true today. If you get hired on to, let's say, be an MWD hand, if you're not in your free time going to the DD and asking questions and taking notes, you're never going to become a DD, right? So people need to remember this. It's actually shocking. I've talked to a lot of people that I know that, let's say, they're just roughneck or they're in derricks, right, on H&P 306, whatever the case may be. They go, "Oh, I'm happy here." I'm like, if you're not asking the driller to train you, you're never going to get any further than that. Like, you have to take initiative. They're not going to do it for you. Because if you don't, the guy that's washing those tanks is going to move right past you, and he's going to be initiative about it. So if you want to grow in a specific career, you have to ask questions. You've got to get involved. And of course, in the words of my good friend JP Warren, you have to network, man. You have to utilize your free time. If you're on days off and they're having an oil and gas event that's like, let's say, a key steel, go with them. You might make a close friend, you might make a connection. They might have an opening that you're a great fit for that you didn't even know was part of the oil and gas industry. You got to get out there. You got to put your face out there.
Right. And you know what? And I think that that's very, very important advice because, and I'm thinking about, the many times that I've walked across pads and everyone seems, and again, I'm just going to call it like I see it, right? Everyone's very busy. Everyone looks like a badass, right? And
I like that. I mean, they do, right? They really, honestly, I just got to throw this in there, but, and I mean, you should claim this, but in the words of Lord Bailey Midkiff and Lombardini, if you don't have boots, buckle jeans, a polo with a belt tucked in, and a sweet Richardson 112 or your greased hair, you're not doing oil and gas right, my friend.
You heard it here first. You are not doing the 112. If you're not rocking the 112, you're not doing it right. No, that's without a doubt. And remind me, we're going to get your hat size when I get the merch, which is coming out very soon. But we'll talk.
For sure.
No, that's baller. But again, right? So I'm walking across pad, and everyone looks badass. Everyone looks like they're very professional, very intent in what they're doing. But here's the kicker also, is that a lot of us get very jaded. And I know that's happened to me, right? I'm jaded. I know what I'm doing. I know my job. If that's your job and I'm not doing your job, to hell with you. I don't care because I'm a bad mofo of my own. And you don't see a lot of people trying to make those moves, right? Like explicitly going. And there was times where I'd be on pad. I would act like an 8-year-old. I'd start knocking on units. "Hey, I'm Christian. What are you guys doing here?" They're like, "We're wireline. Who the hell are you?" Right? Like, why are you here?
Right.
But if you don't do that, you never learn and you never know. So I really appreciate that you give that bit of advice that it's not to be afraid because, again, it's going to be whatever you make it. Is that right?
Well, and I mean, it's crucial for people to hear this too, because as adults, I'm blown away that how many times I've confronted somebody that I know and told them that they're being a naysayer. Like, look in the mirror. Don't be that guy, in any industry. If you're not even in oil and gas, whatever it is, don't do that to yourself, right? Because it brings you down. You're bringing yourself down, right? And you're bringing others down with you. Like, even if you're having a bad day, leave it at the door, walk in, be positive, and you have full control. What you put out there is what you're going to get, right?
Yeah.
And people always have to remember that. It's amazing how many times I'll pull a friend aside and I'm like, "Are you good? Like, take a moment, like, and circle back because you don't sound good, and everybody can feel it."
Right. No, and it's amazing because we don't really talk a lot about our especially men, especially in the oil field. We don't talk a lot about our feelings.
Right.
But you can't sit in a unit 7 feet away from somebody and not know they're having a really bad day.
Right.
And it takes a lot to be able to turn to your coworker and be like, "Dog, are you okay? What's going on?" And it takes even a bigger man to say, "You know what? I got some problems, man. I got some problems at home. I got some problems with the wife. I got some problems here, and I just need an ear." And if we don't do that for one another, we need to do that for one another, because I promise you, no one else cares. No one else cares. Nobody else cares. Because even like I've told my wife, you can see me come home day after day after day after day, what I wear, what I look like, what I smell, but you will never ever know what it's like to live this kind of life. Right. Only our fellow brothers and sisters in the field know what kind of lives that we lead. And we have to be the leaders ourselves to be able to bring others with us. Because if not, we're all going to be broken, sad people. And that's unacceptable. I think that's just unacceptable.
It's crazy you say that, because it's been years since, like, it's even came up, right? Like, hey, you know, like oil and gas is tough, mental health, blah, blah, blah. It's just not even everybody knows it exists. We're not incompetent, right? But nobody talks about it. And Chris Ellie is the only one that I've heard, maybe in 2 years. He called me, and I can't remember what it was for. It was something, you know, oil and gas related. But he expressed how, like, 2 people in the oil and gas industry that I might know that he knew that, you know, took their lives, right? And was like, and he's the only one I think that's ever reached out on LinkedIn and said, hey, like, if you're not doing okay, call your boy Chris. Like, let somebody know, you know. And I mean, we are bad. We're probably one of the furthest away from that in the industry standpoint. It's just not a thing, right? And you're right. And it's never been a thing, you know. Get over it. That's
right.
You know. Yeah. So I agree. It's definitely, it's a unique topic that probably we're the only, besides Chris and now this, is probably the only dude who talked about it in years that's going to have public information that, oh, you know, hey, maybe so, right?
Right. And, you know, one of my theories is that everything in life is fractal, meaning it's the same pattern, writ larger or smaller. So what do I mean by that in this context? So, you know, we're men who are supposed to work in the oil field. We're supposed to be tough. We're supposed to suck it up. And it doesn't matter how you feel. The job has to be done. That's one aspect. That's one aspect I really respect about the work, is that my personal feelings and how I feel that day have precious little to do with anything with the job that needs to be done. And I love being able to kind of give up a certain part of me to be able to do the job, because it's very relaxing in a way, right? For sure. Very zen in a way. But for the people that don't have opportunities to talk to somebody, well, what I mean also is then, in the United States, right, the oil and gas industry is pretty much attacked, which is interesting because we're the ones that fuel everything, but we're the ones that are attacked. It's almost like the father in the Modern Family, not the show, but in the Modern Family, right, with Leave It to Beaver, I think that was the show that began to turn the father into the doofus, right? And now everyone bet. And so now, and it's fun and it's easy to make fun of the father, because without the father, everything falls apart. And without the father, nothing moves forward. So he's an easy target because he has no choice but to keep going. And I think it's the same thing about us in the oil field. We're a very easy target because we have to keep going. And even as individuals and as men, no matter how hurt we may be, doesn't matter. We have to keep going. And we have to take that abuse, because everyone depends on it. And we depend on it. And you know what? We do really need to speak up a lot more. There are efforts in the Permian Basin to discuss mental health more. I'm going to be at the forefront of that issue. I have people coming on the show that are going to specifically discuss this. I want to have
that's exciting. There you go. See, so you're already one step ahead of me. That's what's up. Good for you, man.
Hey, to quote my brother Martin Lombardini, if you're not 5 steps ahead, you're 2 steps behind. And so I can't afford to be on any other way. Not
in the words of Lord Bailey Midkiff, if you're not 15 minutes early to a meeting, you're late. And my cohorts can relate. Like, I call in to Zoom 15 minutes early, even if I'm driving. It's a habit. I was trained. Floyd Bisbee, actually, like the gentleman I talked before, he's the one who trained me that, you know, and it stuck with me, you know. It's funny because I don't think I've ever had anybody that's been more than 5 minutes early, like in my career.
Really?
Yeah. No.
Interesting. So and this is a topic that I think a lot of people talk about, and I really don't want to go too deep into it, but let me ask you, from your personal perspective, how do you see this industry playing out in the big picture, in the big contours? Do you have an idea of how that's going to go?
Like a big overview?
Yeah.
I think you're not going to see many end users that come out of the woodworks much more than we had. We had a big push and those got bought out. I think you're going to see a lot of big players buy out, and there's going to be like the top 5 again, like there used to be back in the 80s. And you're going to see a huge, immense over the course of the next 5 years, service companies is going to be the bread and butter, right? You're going to see that's where, the improvement, the growth, the opportunity is. You're going to see a lot there. You're going to see a lot more overseas, just because from a budget standpoint, drilling companies, they have figured out that it's a lot cheaper to drill maybe in Argentina than it is in the United States. They're still going to do it here because, we're American made in the USA, and we're going to have that percentage no matter what. But we're going to see more of a steady over the next 10 years, like a rig count, 600 to 700. But we're not going to see some huge amount of growth ever again. Just, we've learned our lessons through the years. We know right, we know wrong, we know what we should do. And I also think we're going to see a big shift in each job and the expectations changing, from these automations so huge. And, from like, I went to Altitude Energy Partners not too long ago, and they have like 5 screens for one well, so they got way less people, but now you're paying this dude more, and he's in a nicer environment, and you're training him how to be a supervisor. So I think you're going to see the advancement model change drastically. It's not, hey, you work 10 years and you become a supervisor. I think it's going to be more of you worked a year, we want to build you, we want more out of you. And hopefully, I would love to dream that we're not going to be so much hire fire industry, but I don't think we'll ever see a huge change in that, because if anything comes unexpected, and let's just say a company loses all the work, it doesn't make sense for them to keep a team member. It's just, it's a sad reality. I would love to say there's some answer, but there isn't, right? I mean, it's still a business. And I mean, if you don't have any jobs, you can't have employees to run them.
Correct. No, you're right. And it does happen. And one can't work in this industry and not expect that to happen at some point. I do like the point that you made where, with more M&A and more acquisitions being done, as you say, as we had talked about earlier in the program, those companies are being absorbed. So now in the marketplace, there's a vacuum for more people to come in with service companies, some of them built exactly to sell. But they're going to come into the market because that's what's needed at the time.
Exactly.
Let me ask you this question. It's a little bit, it's related, not related, but it's what we're talking about here. As you said, it's a Monday morning. We're just kind of getting it knocked out here.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Tell me, and I think I previewed this question with you. But tell me a little bit about your first serious girlfriend. But hold on. And the breakup that you had with your first serious girlfriend, and what did those lessons about love and understanding, how does that inform the way you work today with your colleagues, your coworkers, your cohorts, and with your family?
Okay. So my first serious girlfriend would have been Jamie Lynn Reed out of Lusk, Wyoming. Hi, Jamie.
Hi, Jamie.
Hi, Jamie. I moved back with my father. I would have been my sophomore year of high school to Lusk, Wyoming. I think like 3 months into school, we started dating. We dated all the way through high school. The summer we graduated, we broke up because she was going to University of Wyoming. I was going to Casper College. I was headed to the roughneck blue collar degree. She was headed to be a lawyer, whatever the case may have been, right? So parted ways. The first thing I learned when it comes to business on this, and I will jump to the big one and then I'll just ease it into the small ones, is her family was very wealthy, and they owned one of the largest, oldest ranches in Niobrara County. And at that age, you don't think of that, right? So looking back at my age now, I might have stuck around, right? Let's just I wouldn't be working now. I know that. Outside looking in. The guy she married just drives around and, checks cattle, right? So, I mean, outside looking in, I messed up on that deal. But I did learn communication is very key. We were young, so a lot of those lessons were learned. Communication is always an issue. I don't care if somebody says they're a pro at it, they still can grow. I mean, it's just a reality, right? Understanding. I think when you're that age as a teenager, if you see an issue, you take it to the extremes and you're really concerned about it and you let it eat you alive. The older you get, the more you can brush up off your shoulder, and I think making sure you're helping that person be better. Not so much taking from the relationship, right? As a team member, you should spend more time helping them grow, not yourself, because you're in turn going to grow. You're going to learn from that person, right? Not so much, hey, like, I'm not going to hang out with you because it doesn't It doesn't help me right now.
Right.
Well, maybe it helps them, you know? So I'd say those are the big things. Yeah.
That's fantastic. No, that's really no, and really that's actually the perfect answer because, like you say, like understanding, being able to listen, and to being able to communicate. And these are all of the major skills that we need, no matter whether we're roughnecks or lawyers or anything in
Right.
between, right? So I think that is absolutely profound, and I really appreciate that. Bailey, I want to thank you so much for appearing on the show, for taking.
I want to thank you. The minute you texted me, and I mean that text, I won't say what was in it, but it was amazing. It was not AI generated by any means, and it was. I saved it, and I was like, I got to talk to this guy. I didn't even know it was you. I just called, and when I heard your voice, and then I kind of put it together right away. And I mean, that 10-minute conversation we had, I could tell we're both a lot alike, you know. And it's always really exciting to talk to somebody else that has that positive energy, wants to get back, wants to make it happen. So I was very pleased to, allot some time to visit with you today. No, it's been great.
Man,
Thanks for having me.
No, I appreciate you. Please keep doing everything that you're doing on LinkedIn. Please keep sharing your knowledge, your caring heart. I mean, listen, I know it's the right, like the a 7-well pad has no sentimentality. I know that, right?
Yeah.
But we do, because if we don't care about one another who do the job, then really it is heartless and soulless. And so without people like you, Bailey, really this industry and this life doesn't exist. So I really want to thank you first and foremost. Thank you so much for everything that you do, brother, and being such a positive force for everyone, for everybody, bro. So
thank you
very much. I appreciate it. Will you come back on the show at a future date?
Of course I will. Just let me know, as long as I can make it happen. I mean, I'm a traveling guy, so I might, sometimes I take them in the car, sometimes I take them in a hotel room, whatever the case may be. But yes, I always say there's time. You just got to make it.
I agree with you 100%. So listen, my friend, we will talk off air about whether I come up there, whether you come down here, but we're going to do something special together. I know it because you're just too cool of a guy to not.
We're going to make it happen.
We're going to make it happen. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Lord Bailey Midkiff. Please check him out on LinkedIn. And why don't you tell the folks where you work? Because I don't even think we covered where you work.
No, of course. So I am the strategic account manager for Performance Pulsation Control. And check out the website. I'm sure he's going to put it in the comments so everybody can click on that. I mean, I don't want to give too much intel, but I want to say this. We got a couple new products like RFS, Reactive Fluid System. It's well worth the look. It's changing the game. So go check it out.
You got to go check it out. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you, Bailey. I appreciate you even more. We're going to catch you on the next episode. Until then, be safe, stay hydrated. Take care, everybody. Thank you.
You too, buddy.
Bye, y'all. Bye. Dude, that was freaking huge, bro.
We did great, man. I think it went out with a bang.
The Oilfield Leader Podcast is brought to you by executive producer Daniel Corral, executive producer Jim Lane, executive producer and voice talent, me, Mad Mac, production assistant Caleb Knott. The Oilfield Leader Podcast is produced and hosted by Christian Lombardini. Copyright 2024. The Oilfield Leader and Christian Lombardini, all rights reserved. Peace.